Morning everybody. This is a recording of the session we gave to the ACCA's CRO and Risk Forum in May 2025, from purpose to performance, embedding risk, governance and strategy for impact. In the session, we'll introduce business integrated governance and how that aligns to ISO 37000. We'll present 5 or 6 topics that we believe are of interest to CROs and the ACCA Risk Forum, and show how BIG can support those concerns. We'll delve into BIG a little bit more deeply and signpost where you'll find more content. Along the way, we'll have some sections to interact and discuss. We'll do questions at the end, and we'll offer you some calls to action. Well, this is me. I'm David. I'm chairman of CPS, which is a small IT company that's been going for 30 years. I co-founded a small consulting company called Deepteam. I've set up the Business Integrated Governance Community Interest Company, which is the place we've created and shared everything to do with business integrated governance. Please contact me if you'd like to know more, or look me up on LinkedIn. Firstly, anyone talking about risk, governance and strategy should be aware of and should consume ISO 37000 governance of organisation. It contains all of the should-dos in this space, and it's a foundation read. It's fundamental and underpins our work on business integrated governance. Based on what you should do from ISO 37000, the business integrated governance body of knowledge talks more about what you need to build and operate to benefit from integrated governance. It therefore covers the whole integration from purpose to vision, strategy, and into the various forms of delivery within our organisations. So we're really getting line of sight from goals right through to objectives and the activities that underpin them across all of the disciplines and functions within our organisation. It covers business as usual activity, value generation, like product development, asset development, and change activity, which sometimes can be seen as opposite ends of run and change and difficult to balance. The body of knowledge itself has a rationale for why you should consider business integrated governance. It describes some concepts to enable us all to talk the same way, offers some principles to enable us to understand our current state and to build an as-is a to-be vision with. It has some component definitions which define the building blocks for integrated governance, how we can operate it. It offers a life cycle for how to do that, provides links to supporting bodies of knowledge, and offers some methods and models which you might find useful in your journey. Rather than just try to present ISO 37000 or provide an abbreviated training course in business integrated governance, we'd like to get over what business integrated governance is through discussing some themes that might be relevant to risk professionals. And these are the ones we've chosen. Strategy, risk planning, well, you can read the list. We're going to pick off each of them, make a little presentation, and open the opportunity up for some online discussion and questions and answers. We're not going to offer you a definition of what strategy is. You can read that in textbooks and you probably know what it is already. But our perspective of strategy is that it fits in the middle of our businesses. All of us as directors are listening to the outside world, listening to our markets, listening for changes in regulation, listening to what our customers do, etc., etc. We're listening to what our owners want, the business owners want, and we're gathering those thoughts, those inputs. And if we're worth our salt, we're looking for opportunities, we're looking for threats, we're looking for imperatives, i.e. risks, and looking to put those alongside the goals that our owners provide. We're looking to evaluate how all that fits together. We're looking to derive and establish our business purpose and keep that fresh. And then from that purpose, develop the vision and strategy that will take us towards achieving that purpose. And we'll break the responses to that down into objectives for change, challenges for innovation, and targets for business as usual performance, which will set up organizational units to go ahead and do. And with the feedback from that, we'll understand our performance, we'll understand our strengths and weaknesses, and we'll cycle through this process. So for us, strategy isn't something that's ethereal, one-off. It's a living entity, and we'll keep cycling through it and revising it as appropriate to our situation. Well, that picture is very simplistic, but the reality is it's actually very, very complex. We might be able to work at a high level, at the corporate level, with respect to vision, but we have ideas that come from within our organisation, from innovation that we need to stir in. There's complexity as to how that can break down, and it's difficult cascading it. So basically, the simple picture is far from the truth, and it's difficult. And just read up, search. You'll know from personal experience that strategy delivery is not simple. 2/3 to 3/4 of large organisations struggle to implement their strategies. That's what we heard from the Harvard Business Review. So strategy delivery is not easy. So just grabbing the slide we presented previously, how does strategic risk, the response to that risk, and operational risk fit together? Well, strategic risk, we define that as our opportunities, threats, and imperatives, what we have to listen to and respond to in our purpose and our strategy. Our purpose and the strategy gives rise to our objectives, targets, and challenges, which are our response to that. And hopefully, back from the business, we'll see performance and development of our strengths and weaknesses. Okay, so accepted. We may have difficulties in sensing our opportunities, threats, and imperatives. We may have issues in formulating and agreeing strategy. But it seems from events and experience and what people tell us, the majority of issues with respect to strategy are in implementation and delivery. And a quote from one of our events, strategic management seems unable to translate strategic goals to operational goals for clarity and execution. That's quite a bold statement, but it's we find it a heck of a lot. So why is our strategy implementation and delivery so difficult? Well, flippantly, our strategic risk response is not finished after we've set some objectives. Firstly, those of us that own and run organisations will appreciate that we're not command and control. Strategy does not originate in an ivory tower and then get told to everybody. It iterates, it spawns in different places. It's not as simple as the picture I'm going to paint. But just for sake of discussion, let's just use an example where, okay, so we have objectives for a particular department. Those need to be explained, developed, cascaded, broken down into things that people can do, and measures put in place so that we can track them to be done. We have that across our functional departments and perhaps even across the product groups. We have that ideate, develop, deliver, and manage our products and assets. So that's another cascade process to happen. And in our transformational activity, in our cross-functional business changes, We may have a portfolio with strategic objectives for that portfolio, sub-objectives, sub-projects, sub-programs, measures. It all gets very complicated, and this picture is very simplistic. In this example, we know life is a lot more complicated. We know it's complicated and difficult to cascade because of our own experiences and because of events where we've captured feedback from people. And an event we did this time last year, roughly, with the Good Governance Academy, it was about purpose-driven organisations, but we were getting feedback from people as to how far down through their organisations did they believe there was clear line of sight from purpose to objectives and sub-objectives. And whilst at the senior and executive levels there was clarity described, one of the quotes that I'll refer you to is that we lose data connection at the department lead level. So we have clarity of our purpose and our objectives to a certain level, and then it becomes a little bit opaque. So that's a bit of a problem, really. The issue doesn't just relate to the cascade of objectives through departments and teams, or from the portfolio to programs and projects. There is also an issue with respect to collating feedback on what's going on. What we have seen is, whilst as a board we may have objectives which we delegate to some of them to our change portfolio. They will interpret and delegate some of those to particular programs. We'll interpret what's said and respond to that. And then there'll be projects that take on what they think their objectives are. And at each level of delegation, at each level of cascade, we lose some meaning response. So how do we know that the instruction that for the strategic response has actually landed? Furthermore, as we're getting progress, as we're understanding risk at the operational level, we summarize that up through our hierarchy again. And are we truly getting a fair and honest picture of what the risk situation is at the operational level, and is that translating up back against our more senior levels? Is the operational risk actually reaching us? A challenge then we have in managing risk is to get it embedded within the organisation, not just something that we consider in our corporate governance activity, but actually get risk management to be part of how we run the business. So this is where we can use one of the key concepts in business integrated governance, the concept of the accountability node. A point of accountability where we've delegated funds and resources, and we're expecting outcomes, benefits and objectives to be realised in return. Examples: a department is an accountability node, and an accountable person heads that up. A program, a product, these are examples too. And they have a certain form, and in implementing business integrated governance, we recognise this, that each accountability node has a business case which has priority based on the merit of its objectives. It has authority delegated through governance. There's an accountable person who provides leadership from a point in the organisation. And we keep on top of that using plans. We manage risk, we manage issues, and we have measures to help us track our performance. We engage with stakeholders, and we use resources that we may have dedicated to us, or we may have allocated from other management teams, and funds we get from commercial and finance based on a budgeting process. The question is, how many of us systematically break down these components of accountability and formally operate it? So when we say formally operate it, what do we mean? what we mean is that every accountability node that we have, every project, every department, every function, whatever it is, will operate to what we call an agenda. And the agenda is how we make decisions and control that point of accountability. And we'll have some inputs to that process. We'll be working to the opportunities, threats, imperatives and goals that we see for that function or department or product. We'll be working to the purpose and strategy that we see for that particular point of accountability. We may have our own local strategy as a sales director or as a head of professional services, and our own view on what our purpose is, so we'll be working to that. We'll have controls, so we'll understand that performance, we'll forecast what we're going to do, we'll have input from assurance, we'll be managing issues and risks. These are all inputs to our discussion. We may have escalations that come from other accountability nodes that are subordinate to us, that we have doing particular pieces of work related to what we do. And we have outputs. The purpose of our decision making is to produce decisions and actions, to communicate with the outside world, and to escalate issues to other points of accountability or escalate up the hierarchy. From looking at the position of risk here, we're coping with the strategic risk, we're developing responses, and we're managing operational risk. So from a risk perspective, we are baking risk into the operation of governance for every point of accountability at the strategic level, the operational level, and managing the responses to that risk. Another topic we should discuss is social environmental risk and how that relates to our business purpose. So what is the current state for many of us with respect to social and environmental responsibility? Well, here's a quote from traditional free market economic theory. As long as an organisation is operating in their own financial or survival interest, staying within the law and engaging competitively in the market, then the market will automatically optimise society's well-being. So what this suggests is that our free market world will deal with the necessities of social and environmental responsibility. The trouble is that's not what we're seeing, is it? People do want to do the right thing, but there's a profit motive as well, and that's a tension. So if something helps us make a profit, we'll do it. If it doesn't make a profit, then perhaps we find that more difficult. The danger is when it comes to the crunch, financial outcomes will always win. So how do our social and environmental objectives ever get a chance? Well, many of us have recognised this and tactically set up social and environmental responsibility programs. But for many of us, and it's been observed that these tend to result in an ad hoc series of actions which may look good, be comprehensive, but they remain peripheral to the operation of the business. Is that true for you or not? But that is the contention I'm offering you here. As I've pointed you to ISO 37000 for governance of organisations, can I also therefore point you to PAS 808? It's a guide for governing bodies and executive managers, and I'll just read this out, to provide the basis for an organisation to develop their own strategies and approaches to enacting and embedding purpose in their policies, processes, practices, products, services and value networks, especially related to the worldviews and social and environmental implications that come from those. The link to the executive briefing is provided in the slide. So what? PAS 808 is a fantastic read, and you should read it. And it's if you're looking to change your business to be purpose-driven and fundamentally underpinned by the appropriate social and environmental responsibility, you should read it cover to cover and listen to all it says. The problem is, today, for most of us, we're profit-driven. We're still driven by return on investment. And if we're trying to stir in the worldviews, the purpose statements, the objectives that are implied from that, we're trying to stir those into our strategy delivery. Well, we've already suggested that for many of us, strategy delivery is an imperfect process. It's hard, it's difficult, and it's not particularly producing great results. So we have a problem. How will our social and environmental initiatives get funding and resources against initiatives which have a strong return on investment? We're going to have to readdress the way we do strategy delivery and fix it. A clear implication of fixing our strategy delivery is that we have to address our prioritization, because in a world where ROI and profit is king, we wouldn't spend any time or money or leadership time on things that didn't produce tangible value. Yet, if we want to be socially and environmentally responsible, we're going to have to bend that a little bit. And to the other extreme, we can't just do socially and environmentally responsible activities. We have to make a profit. So how are we going to change? How are we going to address this? Well, allow me to put this in a little bit of context for you. At a recent event with about 400 people for the Association for Project Management's Governance Interest Network, we tried to explore the barriers and the challenges within strategy delivery. Those included clarity and communication, cascading and accountability, control, agility and integration, information and data, all the traditional things. We got over 500 question responses back, and I'm not going to go into it now, but there's some real evidence to suggest how and why our strategy delivery is not brilliant. And one of the components that is not brilliant is our prioritization. And we asked, in your organization, are objectives prioritized? And there were many issues. Lack of guidelines, politicking, leadership issues, reactive short-termism, all kinds of problems with prioritization. In other words, it doesn't seem that we're very systematic with prioritization. And if we're not systematic with prioritization based on a lot of return on investment based opportunities, how on earth are we going to stir into that ecosystem our social and environmental risk responses to that? We need to change. We need to fix it. The so what here is quite startling. If we can't prioritize effectively, we're not going to deploy funds, resources and leadership time to the right objectives. If we're not able to deploy funds and leadership time to the right objectives, how can we hold people to account for delivering on them? And if we can't hold people to account for delivering their objectives, how can we expect our strategy delivery to succeed? So accountability is important. We've talked from within BIG. In addition to the idea of an accountability node, which we've discussed earlier, there's the idea of an accountability map. The way that our accountabilities relate to each other. It's more than just. It's not the organisation hierarchy. It also copes with how accountability can flow cross-functionally. So in this schematic, there's the illustration of the accountability that flows from a project to a program to a change portfolio in the change domain. That sits alongside of the flow of accountability from a management team to a department to a business area in the operational sphere, and there are clearly accountabilities that flow across those domains, especially when we're delivering a program to a business area. We can further stir in the idea of our product development, again across domain accountabilities, and they can all be mapped. We also have governance and assurance to put over the top of this to make sure it all works and everyone's behaving the right way, and dependency management, and we need to be able to prioritize resource deployment, especially where resource deployment is between it goes cross-functionally, and the beneficiary of a piece of work isn't necessarily the area that resources it. And we can add on top of that our assurance and financial review functions. So we can build up an accountability map of how our organisation works and who's accountable to who for what. This is vital stuff. There are two key enablers here. The first one, of course, is information flow, and what underpins accountability measurement of it and of performance related to it is availability of data and the ability to derive information from that. And if we're sending information on spreadsheets, on PowerPoints from point to point, we may soon find that our information infrastructure is pretty poor. How do we trust the validity of the information that we're seeing? How do we verify the accuracy? It's this send and receive model with respect to information is very manual, labor intensive, and it's not very reliable. So in an integrated world, instead of sending information from point to point, the model is that we share information that we use, and we allow people to dip into that common pool of information to pull out the information they need to support their point of accountability. That's a key aspect to business integrated governance, that we share information rather than send it. The trouble is, how many of us presently are geared up to this? How many of us have truly built appropriate information systems and information capabilities to support strategic accountability? We tend to leave people to send information and hope for themselves. The second key enabler is a business support function that enables this to happen. One that oversees the cascade of objectives through the organisation to ensure that we don't get any meaning loss and that what we expect to happen sticks. The second part is a support function that ensures that we integrate risk into how we operate and make decisions and manage our accountability. And the third aspect is ensuring that we have the appropriate information and data and the information and data infrastructure to enable this to happen. Support, assurance, orchestration of integrated governance that connects with and joins up all the local support functions that we have to ensure that we get effective integrated governance, and via which we get effective strategy delivery. I've covered a lot. To summarise then, the strategy theme. It's difficult to implement and control and build risk into. Risk planning. The cascade of objectives and return of the risk picture is difficult. It's not easy. We get meaning loss. Embedding risk in governance. It's made more difficult when we don't operate accountability. Social and environmental risk and purpose. Ultimately, most of us are profit driven, and we need to address that so we can get the non-profit driven things stirred in correctly. Prioritization. If we don't prioritize, how can we hold people fairly to account? Accountability. If we're not achieving it, how can we deliver our purpose-driven strategy? My proposition to you is that we've been talking about strategy and governance and execution. My proposition to you is that if we take an integrated approach to the governance, we can be more successful in delivering our strategic components. We've captured and described business integrated governance in a body of knowledge. It's shared, it's free, it's in the public domain. It contains a rationale as to why you should use the concepts. It contains concepts so we can speak the same language together. It has principles so we can assess our current state and help us develop a to-be. It has components which we can build from. There's an example life cycle which suggests how it can be approached. There are links to other knowledge sources and relevant bodies of knowledge to help us build all that we need. And it includes some sample methods and models which you can use in operating integrated governance and setting it up. I'm going to skip through this content because simply you can look this up on the website. You can read about it another time. But just a signpost for you, we've spent a lot of time working out who it's for and which trigger scenarios would cause them to use it, which will be very useful when you're engaging stakeholders. It has some fundamental concepts, again, which I'll highlight here, but you can read about in the body of knowledge itself. It has the idea that we have to have a clear organisation and a clear strategic purpose, and use some definitions for the controls that we're going to cascade information, strategic information, through the organisation with. We'll have a strategy information model, which consists of our objectives, our documents, our key results, everything we need to cascade through the organisation, which describe and allow us to configuration manage the strategy. A strategy operating model, which describes how we originate and manage our strategy. We then hand our strategic process over into the organisation, and we operate it through business integrated governance and an operating model related to that, which keeps together our strategic process, our change activity, our value creation activity, and our business as usual. And we enable that through support and assurance and effective data. There are principles. The principles are quite simple. Underneath each of the principles, there's a definition. We've provided good and bad statements against each principle to help an organisation to understand where it is and therefore deduce which principles it needs to do something about improving on. It enables us to, in a risk-free, confrontation-free way, to gain consensus on where we are with respect to integrated governance, and to agree what a vision will look like and what our priorities for in creating that vision. The body of knowledge also contains component definitions. So all of the building blocks we believe that you need to address to build an infrastructure to operate integrated governance. We define all that, not only the integrated governance components, but also we refer to the enabling tools and processes that we need to have in place to make it happen. The body of knowledge has a chunky section on life cycle. Some of you may be already thinking, well, how on earth do I get this stuff to happen? Well, there's a way to go about it. I won't go into depth here, but the body of knowledge has this, and there's plenty of other material and content you can use to understand this. So firstly, there's this notion of first steps. First steps is about, well, can we first gain consensus that there's a problem? Can we raise the possibility of improving strategy delivery, and to see whether we even want to go there? We can remove barriers to engaging by gently working around the organisation. You might have heard of the Japanese word nemawashi, working around the roots. And the idea is that if we can build consensus on the problem, on the opportunity, then we can draw stakeholders into our process of building a vision and a roadmap for what we need to do to improve things. If we can get past first steps, then we can look at the traditional life cycle, discovery. What are the pains in detail? What do we have to build? What do we have to change? Doing the build, supporting adoption of capability. You can do it as big chunks of change activity with this department or that department, or we can look to introduce capability across departments. There's all kinds of ways that we can build and support adoption, but then of course we've got to sustain it. And by sustain, I don't just mean keep the lights on, I mean develop and push and make better. So it's there's no magic wand to this. There's a process, and it starts with first steps engagement. So here are the links. You can pick them up. Just to explain what they are, the top one is the BIG CIC homepage, where you'll be able to navigate through to all the content. There's an About Us page, which talks about who the community interest company are and everything about us. You can click through to the body of knowledge itself and download it and consume it. You can become a member. So becoming a member is free. It just shows that people support us and have accessed our content. You can do an exam, and there are professional exams in development, which you're more than welcome to gain a credential for. There's a LinkedIn group where you can collaborate, and there's a YouTube channel with a whole lot of this kind of content on there. One piece of content is how to use the BOK. So the topic of risk, governance and strategy is enormous. We've done our best to take a risk perspective to all that, and we've introduced you to ISO 37000, Governance of Organisations. Read it if you haven't already, and the BIG framework, which talks about the capabilities and components that you need to build to operate integrated governance. We've got into the whole range of subject areas that should be of interest to people managing risk in the strategic domain. We've looked at risk and strategy. We've looked at risk and planning, operating risk, prioritization, accountability. We've taken a few perspectives which hopefully resonate and demonstrate the need for integrated governance. I've signposted the big body of knowledge. Haven't gone into detail, but you can read up on it and attend further sessions. You're more than welcome. And I'm about to show you some links which you'll be able to find more information from, and I'll offer you a call to action when I've gone through that. Final messages then. What we propose to you is to bring simplicity to your strategic process. You can find out more on the big website. We can help you manage complexity, and there are various components and tools within the Big BOK which help you understand your readiness, your current state, and help you decide what to do next. And with all this is leading towards the goal of engaging your stakeholders around their pains related to strategy delivery, many of which are risk related. If you'd like to find out more, just become a member, join in, participate in our LinkedIn groups, or join us at further sessions if you'd like to.